Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's tech brief for HCL Accelerate. My name is Kim Splain, and I'll be your moderator today. I'd like to go over just a couple quick housekeeping items before we get started. First of all, the session is being recorded, so if you prefer not to participate in the recorded session, please go ahead and drop from the call now. And then during the webinar, if you have any questions, we'd like to ask you to please type them in the GoToWebinar control, or the question panel in the GoToWebinar control panel. And then someone will respond to you as soon as possible. And then as time permits, we'll take a minute to review some of those questions at the end of the webinar. So thanks again for taking the time to join us today. We hope you enjoy the webinar. I'm going to hand things over to Nick to get us started. Nick?
Awesome, thanks, Kim. All right, so today I'm going to be going over all the new things that came within HCL Accelerate 3.1. Before I get started, just to introduce myself. My name is Nick Matheson. I am the product manager for HCL Accelerate. I spend most of my time working with customers, working with my development team to work our new features, our new items out the door, and make sure we're having our customers happy. In a prior life and beforehand, I was a value stream manager myself. I was a release manager as well, working with our own internal teams to shepherd our releases out the door and ensure we have good processes in place, whether it is automation, ensure we have good deployment automation, pipeline automation, or simply just refining our processes to minimize the churn and minimize the handoffs that occur for wasted time and effort. So a lot of that experience has really brought me into HCL Accelerate in this value stream management space and how we can apply a lot of those learnings from both internally as well as our own customers to help our customers deliver better products faster. So jumping into it, just kind of quick recap, I'll say, of value stream management as a whole to make sure we're all on the same page. Overall, as we look at our value streams, we're really trying to understand how we are delivering our values to our end customers. In all of these value streams, we're trying to organize a set of triggers or a set of items, a set of issues, a set of requests that come in from our customers, ideally, and they follow through a system, they follow through a chain of events, and finally get delivered out to that end customer, right? And we have a happy customer at the end. At that top level, and what most commonly our customers interact with is that operational value stream. So in this example, and each of those checks in between is a sample Amazon delivery. When you make a request online on Amazon.com, that is your trigger, right? And when that trigger occurs, a bunch of internal processes happen, from managing inventory to routing it to the warehouse to packaging your order, shipping it, and then maybe finalizing it with a follow-up email confirmation, etc. And that is largely the customer experience, right? And how we can optimize those steps, ensure that we are delivering value to our customers faster. However, as we start to break this down, a lot of those fundamental pieces are made up of what we call development value streams, right? The things that HCL software or DevOps life cycles are all about and trying to focus on and improve. So something like the managed inventory, routing inventory effectively to the correct warehouses, or maybe the finalization of the orders, are all managed by some back-end development pipeline, software pipeline, where you have a set of work items that you're constantly working on. You have your builds, you have your tests, you have your deployments into various test stage production environments, and all are one unit of that larger operational value stream. However, what we're hearing constantly from our customers is that there's a lot of these value streams across the organization. While the operational value stream is hopefully clean and concise, the underlying components start to get maybe unwieldy at times. It's hard to make comparisons between development value stream A and development value stream B, and we're not sure where we should necessarily be focusing our time to provide the most value. So a great example is just Dave, our development manager, is trying to manage all of these various value streams, or trying to provide some apples to apples comparisons between them, and everything is desynchronized. We're all following different processes, and therefore we can't make clean dollar sign driven investments of where we should be spending our time. So that's where we really come into a value stream management software. So taking it deeper and going into that view, we have our classic software delivery pipeline, right? So as I mentioned before, we all start with that idea, that trigger, and it gets then deployed into your final environments into production. On the right-hand side, this is traditionally where the DevOps space has lived, right? We've kind of been in this optimal space of once our work items get merged, or once our commits get merged, how can we push those items into production as quickly as possible, as reliably as possible? DORA metrics are a great example of how we can optimize this right-handed side, this repetitive side of our software delivery lifecycle. And HCL has succeeded in that space with a wide variety of its own solutions. However, as we start to shift left, right, we all hear the shift left of trying to get some of these ideas, concepts earlier. We start to reach this fuzzy front end, this creative side, this black box nature where not everything is repeatable. We need to be able to inspect things and iterate on them quickly to ensure we are delivering our customer value as quickly as possible, but frankly, before we get into all those necessary repetitive stages. So across this entire development lifecycle, how can we start to bring the highly repetitious phases in our right half with the highly flexible creative stages in our left half? And that's where we really come with HCL Accelerate as our value stream management platform, being able to view the entire software delivery process and be able to grab insights both from that fuzzy front end of how we are iterating on our work items, on our issues, on our epics, and how they're flowing out all the way into production. So when we take this single view and start to roll it up and start to compare it across multiple value streams, across multiple development value streams, we start to see trends, we start to see how teams are performing against one another, and hopefully be able to identify which team potentially needs the most help and what team would provide the most benefit for the overall operational value stream. So with Accelerate in itself, we are a value stream management platform that brings all of our DevOps tool chains together to glean a ton of insights around our processes, both our sprint processes, our Kanban processes, how we are trending work through the system, and then start to identify those bottlenecks of how those work items and processes are dropping and dropping between the cracks. And once we start to identify those bottlenecks, we can look to remove them, optimize our flow, and then start to input automation to ensure they don't happen again. So the main three capabilities that we frequently talk about here, then I'll talk about here as well as I go through it in various settings, is around our value stream visualization. So being able to fully see in real time how our work is tracking through the system, both from its trigger, its idea generation, all the way until it gets deployed into production. Various DevOps insights to understand how all that work from your work items to your PRs and commits to your epics and features and your deployments, how all of that set of information is working together in a seamless data model. And then finally, being able to take some action on all that data. So with pipeline aggregation, being able to coordinate multiple application deployments, being able to see it all in a single clean pane of glass, and be able to coordinate deployments and control those deployments from a single pipeline view. And then last but not least, around our release management. So if we're still in our retroactive nature of having big coordinated releases, this release management is a good tool to help streamline that. So with our value stream visualization, we have good understanding of that fuzzy front end of how and how it all links throughout the entire system. With our pipeline aggregation, we have that kind of DevOps centric spot of the highly repeatable phases. With our release management, we have the tail end of ensuring that those final days are all coordinated well. And then with our DevOps insights sitting across everything to pull it all together. So quick recap of 3.0 and what happened here. I'll leave this on the page just so we see it and we're aware. But a couple highlights that I do want to talk about are around continuous investment in making your work visible and predictable. Things that we talk about on that fuzzy front end are black box in nature, right? We don't understand how things are flowing well, things get lost, things get dropped, things just linger, or new things get added unknowingly, right? How can we make sure all of that is available and it's all apparent and present? Automated governance with the data-driven intelligence, ensuring that we have good control over what we are deploying. So yes, we want to move fast, but we don't want to move fast unwieldy and without good control systems in place. So whether that is providing good reporting mechanisms or providing good automated governance. That is kind of our focus in our space there. And last but not least, around our day one experience. So ensuring that as we get started with value stream management, there's a good onboarding experience to make sure there's some demo data available that you can look at our product and start to get some insight quickly without going through all the hoops necessarily to integrate all your various tools. Right? How can we show you just that first day experience of what it might look like and get you excited. So going into the features a little more and some smaller screenshots here. In the top left, we added our in-browser VSM UI editor. So one of the requests that we got from our customers was around the management of our VSM JSON. Before, you had to download the JSON itself, you had to modify it locally, and it was a little bit of a pain modifying it locally, uploading it, seeing what changed, and not getting quick feedback. So since then, we've added an in-browser editor, so you can make all those edits within your browser. You have a little text area box or a large text area box to make those modifications, build out your queries, etc. And then on the right-hand side of that, we have some version history. So it does happen, you make mistakes, and you need to roll back. So with this version history, you can see exactly who's made that change, when did they make it, and then roll back to an earlier state of time, or at least view an earlier state of time to understand what your value stream looked like in the past. This has seen a lot of good benefits to iterate quickly and be able to try new things out and see exactly how your value stream map lives in real time. So that's with our VSM UI editor. In the top right with our demo value stream experience is around our demo data experience. So right now, since actually it should say 3.0 recap, but with 3.0, if you go to our getting started page and you're an admin user, in the top left, you should see a simple button to inject your product with a ton of demo data and to seed it with a couple value streams and a bunch of insights and reports to start to understand what it's all about, start to see what a value stream map might look like, what data it's starting to pull from, how that data model works and how things are connected together. Just start to understand what you might get in your own experience. And from that, you can start to either iterate on it and build out your own within that existing value stream map, or simply just use that as a template, copy, paste it, put it somewhere else, and start to build it out and use it as just an example of how to roll forward. So that's a really, really good experience to just get started and see what HCL Accelerate is all about. In the bottom left, we expanded a lot of our automated gating controls. So previously, we've supported manual gating for a while. We've supported automated gating for a while. However, there's some limitations in how the relationship occurred between your metric and the version you're looking to deploy. So since then, we provided a little more control over how you can gate and what specific metric you want to gate on. So for example, you can now specify any type of field to gate upon. Before we had a select number, so that is now opened up. The world's your oyster, so to speak, on what you want to gate and what you want to allow or block. In addition, you have the targeting data set specifically. What exact data set metric are you looking at? Sometimes our metric types start to get fleshed out as we start to push in more and more information. So application vulnerabilities, for example, sometimes we've separated those out. Maybe you run application vulnerabilities from a UI perspective and a backend perspective and middleware, and you want to start splitting those out from a data set perspective. So now we can start to say, all right, with my UI, I allow 0 high vulnerabilities, but maybe I allow 1 or 2 from a middleware perspective. Whatever that might be, you start to have that finer grain control. And last but not least, something like time range allows you to control when you want to import or when you want to respond to certain results. So in many situations, you don't run a scan every single day, right? Maybe you only run it on a weekly basis. Maybe you only run it on a bi-weekly basis. Whatever that cadence might be, you start to have control over being able to accept those results as long as they are within a certain time range. So it provides a little bit of flexibility as we start to onboard and as we start to encourage and grow our automating capabilities when it comes to testing, whether that's quality or security. And last but not least, the last big feature here with 3.0 was around the custom role creation. So before we had static roles, we had about 12 static roles that allowed you to just assign them to certain users and control access throughout the product. Since then, we've been able to allow you to mix and match all the permissions to build your own role. So if you wanted a role that can oddly do maybe look at releases, but also just view value streams, that is totally possible. If you want to take ours as an example and modify it, that's possible as well. So it just gives very much enterprise grade control to HCL Accelerate. Cool. So those are the big items with 3.0. As we move to 3.1 now, so with 3.1, we released on May 17th, so it's been available for just about 2 weeks now. And in that, we've taken a similar approach of kind of our three main initiatives. So one of the big initiatives we have is still automated governance. So being able to exploit our flexible integration system and start to penetrate uncontrolled software delivery. So making sure that we are providing governance and control around our pipelines and our orchestration capability. Secondly, we spent a lot of time on performance and optimization. A lot of our customers were looking to grow and expand their usage of Accelerate and ran into some hiccups. So we spent some time refining some, frankly, of our tech debt, ensure that we can roll out in a faster manner and a scalable manner. So we'll get into some of the numbers there. And then last but not least, around the continued cloud native strategy. So there's cloud always changes, especially Kubernetes, and there's always new things popping up. So spent some time revising some of our existing items, ensure that we're keeping up with the standards that exist today. And I'll go through some of those as well. So the first thing here I'm going to talk about is around custom reports. So you can start to build your own custom reports. Today, we have some flexible insights that allows you to build your own chart, build your own dashboard, and allows you to organize that as you see fit. Well, similar capabilities are now possible with your audit reports. Audit reports are much better with a traceable fashion. If you need to download it, send it out in a PDF, mail it to your colleagues, whatever that might be, reports are the perfect solution for that. Today, we already have a bunch of reports, from an app scan report to deployments reports to sprint status reports. And a bunch of examples already exist in the product today, but now you can start to leverage those and build out your own. So a great example here is around our release readiness report that's seen a lot of success. So if you want to build something like that, build it yourself. If you go to your insights page, you will now see in the top left 2 buttons around add report and download sample report. That download sample report will bring you to a small zip file, and in that zip file, you can start to build out your own report. It is based on handlebars and Node.js JavaScript behind the scenes. So it will require some manipulation of endpoints to retrieve the correct information and some handlebars knowledge to formulate the charts effectively. But this starts to expand the possibilities of leveraging our data model behind the scenes. We've had a lot of requests to build new reports and make small pivots and changes to existing reports. So instead of us responding to every single request, we wanted to ensure that our customers and our user base also has that capability as well. So I highly recommend taking an existing report, looking to modify it, or simply building one from scratch. Moving on, so the performance and optimization. So one of the big changes that we did with 3.1 was around the new background job service. So what we found was a lot of medium to large value streams started to create heavy metric calculations, which then impacted stability. So in a theoretical perfect world, and this is kind of what we learned from a Kubernetes experience over time, was the happy playing together of multiple services. So we have our front end, we have our GraphQL, we have our various VSM metrics, and perfect worlds, they all lived harmoniously together. Unfortunately, what happened was these VSM metrics really started to overtake and grow into the other services and started to impact them. both kind of impacting what the other services were capable of doing, but also frankly expanded past the available service or available node. So what we've since done is separated them out. So we've started to update our logic and our Kubernetes Helm charts to ensure that, one, these VSM metrics exist in a new service. They are separated out. They won't impact the existing front end and GraphQL services, but then also allocated its own node for those VSM metrics. So some of the outcomes that we've seen with this is just a flat 20% improved speed. So as we are trying to calculate these VSM metrics, they are now just being calculated faster. In addition, it's having negligible front-end impact. So if you are uploading new build metrics, if you are just interacting with the UI, navigating new value streams, etc., whatever is happening in the background with all those calculations should not affect your experience on the front end. And then last but not least, the greater control over the node sizes. So one of the problems we had was we kind of had to scale everything together, but now we're starting to have a greater control over how big those individual node sizes might be. So all just kind of better enterprise level support for our existing customers as they start to expand and grow their usage for HCL Accelerate. Two caveats that we need to be aware of if we start to go down this path. One, you need to migrate to a Kubernetes or OpenShift platform, whether it's GCP or AKS, whatever the Kubernetes platform is, doesn't matter, but it just needs to be on Kubernetes in some way or OpenShift. Docker Compose is not supported in production, so you will not be able to see these changes there. And frankly, what it leverages is Kubernetes nodes behind the scenes. So have a small command down in the bottom left there that tries to outline what it would take, or at least a small command to start assigning those labels and those node affinities. But just to give you an idea of what it'll take and some of the manipulation you might need to make. If you want to know more, highly recommend you check out our documentation to formulate your Kubernetes environment correctly. Second is around our heavy pipeline and release usage. So similarly, we are seeing a huge expanse of our pipelines and release sections. So on the left-hand side, one of our customers is looking at using 50 applications with 10 environments on a single pipeline. 50 times 10, we're looking at about 500 little cells, and then if you include the input, that's 550 cells that all need to be updated and all need to be maintained and responding in real time. So as you might imagine, that's a lot of data coming to the system and things that we need to manage and maintain quickly. So a lot of revisements have been done on the pipeline page to respond more quickly and to ensure that load times have improved as we start to view this pipeline and response as well. So if you are a user that has heavy pipeline usage, highly recommend checking out 3.1, installing 3.1, and you'll see those load times greatly improve. Secondly is around our concurrent release or deployment plan usage. So similarly, on big release days, understandably, we had a lot of individuals, a lot of customers heavily invested in those deployment plans, making sure, monitoring, checking things off, manual tasks, monitoring the automated tasks, what went wrong, responding to those. So we had a lot of concurrent users within one or a single release plan to understand what's been going on. Naturally, we started to see, and that's that blue line there, some heavy performance degradations as more and more individuals jumped onto that release plan. Since 3.1, we've nearly put it into a straight line, or at least a flat line. So if you're a team that is in use of our release management functionality, we have a lot of concurrent users that are jumping in there to see what's been going on. Highly recommend you check out 3.1.0 and start to see those improvements there as well. So some outcomes of kind of the work that we've been doing. So deployment plan load times have just nearly doubled, or I really should say improved by nearly double. So just the load times itself will have just respond faster, especially if you're a user that has modified a deployment plan significantly. Those started to build a large change history, and that started to just slow things down. So if you've manipulated a bunch of deployment plans, highly recommend looking at 3.1.0. In addition, as I mentioned before, around application pipelines and just the gradual performance degradation of our release plans. So just near flatlining of that. And alongside all this, we've seen some resources being recycled more quickly and just overall CPU memory consumption being reduced by about 20%. So if you're in the pipeline deployment space, if you're in the release management space, highly recommend looking at 3.1.0. Last kind of notables and some smaller items that you should be aware of as you're looking to upgrade to 3.1.0. So in the top left around F&O, we have changed our mechanism for configuring with FlexNet with our licensing server. Previously, you had to specify a unique cloud license server, which was non-standard. You also needed to provide a private key to authenticate between that separate cloud license server. Now you'll see us conform to what you see across the other HCL software products. So a simple license server in the top there, and then a license server ID in the value as well in the bottom. So very simple, very clean, does not require you anymore to download a CLI, commit a public private key to establish a connection, and then re-upload that private key into our configuration. Very, very simplified installation process there. One thing to note, however, is that when you upgrade to 3.1.0, your license server configuration will be broken. So I highly recommend that first thing you do when you install is go to your license management tab and connect your license server to your environment. One of the things just to kind of help with that migration is if you are using a cloud license server, it's going to be this URL that we have at the top here in the summary, and then the license server ID will be the same license server ID that you are using today. In fact, it might already be in your URL that you have configured here. So it should take no more than 30 seconds to reconfigure your license server. Moving on with the OpenShift installation. One thing I'll say is we still support OpenShift. We always have been, and we will continue to support OpenShift. The main caveat here is the way in which we are supporting the OpenShift installation. Previously, in versions prior to 3.0.0, we had the OpenShift templates installation path. If you went through our installer, you would have seen OpenShift templates as an option. To help just conform to standards and minimize some tech debt, we've opted for shifting to a Helm path for OpenShift. So in the 3.0 fixed packs versions, you'll start to see a Helm option being supported for OpenShift. If you are already in this 3.0x space, highly recommend you shift over to the Helm already. It's a much easier, simplified installation experience, and we'll get you ready for your 3.1.0 upgrade. Starting with 3.1.0, OpenShift template installation path is no longer supported. It's been removed from the product. You will not find it in our installers. So as you are going through your upgrade, and you can do it during your upgrade as well, you will need to migrate to the Helm installation path. There are migration steps on our website to help you through that. This has situated us well for operator support. This was definitely done with operator support in mind, and something that we plan to support in the near future. Last but not least here is around plugins. Definitely spent a ton of time investing in new plugins, reiterating on old ones, and making sure that our existing customers are successful. So some new plugins that have come around GitHub Actions, Dependabot, Snyk, Plainview Lean Kit, Microfocus Fortify, and Octane. These are all customer requests that we've seen, and we've responded quickly to ensure that they are a success. Some things that, if you've noticed some problems around Jira and GitHub, we've revised those to have improved API calling logic. So sometimes they're a little excessive in the information they were calling or how frequently they were calling the information. So you should see some stand back logic to ensure we aren't pressuring those Jira and GitHub servers too much. And then internally, we use AppScan internally, we use Whitesource internally. So some of those that we've refined as well to ensure that we're happy with those solutions ourselves, and we can definitely speak to them as personal users as well. Last but not least, some smaller plugin framework fine-tunements. So what you'll notice in some plugins, such as Jira, is a resync capability. There are situations where you need to just resync your data, somehow it got out of sync, something went down, etc., and you need to just pull in everything you've missed. So you now have the option of resyncing up to a certain time, so maybe 1 month in the past, 2 months in the past, or simply doing a full resync. So if you go to the overflow menu, you'll see everything. This is really helpful for first-time configuration as well. So instead of importing everything, you can try to contain it to a 2-week, 2-month, whatever it might be time span, and just get yourself going faster. In addition, you'll notice with some plugins, you might find that if you're on older versions of Accelerate, that you are no longer able to install all versions of plugins. We've added some logic to ensure that there's some control mechanisms to prevent accidental installs when the plugin is not supported, and just ensure that you're not in a bad state and find yourself in trouble. So if you see that, you might see a quick error message that provides some guidance that you need to upgrade to a later version of Accelerate, and just help guide you to that new product or that new product install. Cool. So that leaves us there, and I think hit the mark on timeline. So if you want to check out HCL Accelerate, highly recommend you go to hclsw.co/getaccelerate. There you will find 2 editions. You will find a free community edition and a trial as well. If you are interested, I highly recommend you check out the community edition. It has a freemium 2-user seat model with all the same bells and whistles that I went over today, as well as your 3.0 features from last time, and just get you started. Download it, run that demo data plugin, and just see what bottlenecks you can identify, what high WIP limits or what deployment frequency that can be improved. Just get going and start building out your own value stream. If you want to have a more handheld experience, if you want to get in contact with us, definitely fill out that same form. We're happy to get in contact with you and help guide you through your value stream management journey. So thank you very much for your time. That is all I have.
Okay, we did have a couple questions, Nick.
Awesome. Sure.
First one is, can you give an example of how you've used custom reports internally?
Sure. Yeah, so one of the things that we've used custom reports internally for is around our build analysis. So like any product team, we've had our own challenges at times with kind of build troubles. In any CI fashion, we're looking to optimize that and ensure that we are never behind the 8 ball in ensuring our builds are always building. So one of the things that we've done is build an internal report around our CI processes to start to dig into the specifics of what section of our builds have failed. You know, is there any sort of consistency? Are we seeing repeated failures in that space? And it allows us to get into a much finer grained detail of those build failures. So that's a really good one that we've used internally with a lot of success.
All right, great. And then just one more. I'm interested in the Whitesource plugin. How can I learn more?
Yeah, sure. So the Whitesource plugin, and maybe I can pull the plugins page up quickly here. So if you haven't already, I highly recommend you check out plugins.hcltechsw.com. All of our plugins are available here. So if you want to check out Version Vault, Accelerate, Launch, everything is available here. And we have a bunch of plugins available for you to check out. For anything Accelerate, simply hit that Accelerate tab and that'll start to search. So if we're looking specifically for something like Whitesource, we can start to dig into that one, find it, and start to learn more here. So there's a bunch of pictures, there's some documentation that you can dig into and start to import all of that data into Accelerate. Cool.
All right, perfect. Thank you. That's all the questions we have for today. So Nick, appreciate your hard work on all this great info. Thanks everyone for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye everyone.